Alexandro Santiago versus Junto Nakatani, 12 rounds for the WBC bantamweight title. Let's get into it. Let's start with Santiago. 28 wins, 3 losses, 5 draws, 14 wins by way of knockout. Santiago is a very underrated fighter to me, man. We've covered him a couple times on the channel already. When he fought Nonito Donaire, I felt like for him, that was the perfect time to fight Nonito Donaire, right? Because Donaire was coming off a loss, a knockout loss in the rematch when he fought Naoya Inoue, and he was a year older, coming off a loss, year older. He's had 50 fights to that point, a lot of war fights, a lot of wear and tear, and you just got the sense of like, man, like things was really starting to show. And not to mention, that was a long layoff for Donaire as well, too, getting back into the ring. To me, the math was mathing. It was making sense. And so for me, I was like, yo, Santiago, man, this is your time. It's your opportunity. It's your time to get it done. And sure enough, he was able to do it on the night, which we'll get into that fight in a little bit here. I think some of the draws that Santiago has on his resume, man, I think he got the short end of the stick in those fights. I think there are fights that were much closer, and there were fights that I felt like he should have got the nod. When he fought Antonio Neves the first time, I felt like he should have got the nod the first time, and he did get that revenge in the rematch when they fought. He got the win. I felt like when he fought Jose Mercado, I thought he did enough to win that fight. I felt like when he fought Jerwin Ancajas, I thought he did enough to win that fight. So you could always go with the woulda, coulda, shoulda, what should have happened. But in reality, it didn't happen, and the record is what it is. But the point of saying all that was, man, his record says one thing, but he performs much better than what his record says. And I thought it showed in his last outing when he fought Nonito Donaire. When he fought Donaire, man, I thought he fought within himself. He fought his fight. He didn't get too sucked into fighting against a bigger puncher in Donaire who wanted to make it a little bit of a brawling type of fight where he didn't have to search and find his opponents, right? He didn't get sucked into fighting that fight. He boxed when he needed to. He let his hands go when the openings was there, and he fought a physical fight, used his physicality when he needed to. He stood in front of him when he needed to. He didn't always need to do all of those things all at once, but there were rounds when he needed to do one of those things, and I thought he did that very well. Used his jab, and defensively, he was aware. I felt like Donaire was a step slower than what we're accustomed to seeing him. Father Time has a way of doing that. It is what it is. But that didn't mean he wasn't still dangerous, and it didn't mean that he still didn't have a nice pop in his shots. There was a sequence when Santiago, you could see, was letting his hands go, getting busy, had Donaire on the ropes. And he got himself a little too overconfident, and Donaire came through with a counter left hand that backed up Santiago and had him right there standing still in the position, the stance where he was in. Then he had to say, wait a minute, let me get back here and let me get back to what I was doing and bring in a little bit more calculated attack. Donaire, even at 40, even though he looked a step behind, still has the power that garners his opponent's respect. Santiago was able to recover from that shot and finish the round. Felt like Santiago never let Donaire get comfortable in the fight. He kept Donaire on his back foot. Donaire isn't the best on his back foot, especially now at this stage in his career. He just pushed him back and kept his volume high, kept punching, kept outworking, kept giving different looks, setting up different type of shots. One of the things that Santiago did very well, man, was targeting the body and finding different ways how to target the same part of the body, whether it was a jab up top, boom, with the other hand, hit low, jab to the body, hook with the right hand to the other side of the body. I thought he disguised his attacks very well throughout that fight, and he went back to what was working. I think sometimes fighters get into this notion, man, where they have success in a couple rounds, and then they kind of try to do other things to gain other type of ways how they could damage their opponent. But as the old added saying goes, if it's not broken, don't fix it. If you are having success one way, yo, go back to that one way consistently until your opponent makes adjustments. And I felt like Santiago did a great job of consistently going to what was working, and that was the volume, going to the body, and making sure that Donaire was not the one who was coming forward. I'm going to push him back. I'm going to be on the front foot. I'm going to bring the pace. I'm going to be the aggressor. And I felt like as the fight went on, yeah, Donaire still has some good moments towards the end of the fight. But as the fight went on, genuinely from the entirety of the fight, you could see Donaire was starting to really get hit cleanly. You could see Donaire's age was really starting to show. You could see Donaire's wear and tear of all of the 50 fights and wars that he's been involved in was starting to show. And Santiago was starting to inch himself closer to becoming a champion, inching himself closer to finally being able to hold that world title belt. I thought it was a great performance from Santiago, a beautiful performance, and he earned that title, earned that belt. Finally, things felt like it was working in his favor, and he came out on the other side. And on the night, he defeated a great fighter in his own right and became a champion. It was a great fight. His first title defense, though, is against someone who many consider one of the dangerous opponents in that division, if not the dangerous. But things are going to be interesting. So let's talk about his opponent, Junto Nakatani. 26 wins, no losses, 19 wins by way of knockout. Nakatani, man, that's a bad dude, man. I'm not going to lie to you. That's a bad dude, man. We saw what he did last year to Andrew Maloney. Nakatani doesn't just, at least to date, he doesn't just beat his opponents, right? Like he puts a beating on his opponents. He can punch. You know, he's got the power. He knows how to control the range. He knows how to use his size and physical advantages to his advantage. He's an accurate puncher. He's sharp, smart, good adjustments, and he's vicious, good fundamental, sound technique. But his demeanor is so calming, right? It's not that he can't be hurt. It's not impossible to hurt him. He's been hurt before, but never really in trouble like that. But he's tough to beat because of all of the tools that he possesses and has in his bag. And he knows how to close out the show if his opponent is hurt. We've covered Nakatani a few times on the channel already, so we don't need to go to the intricacies of all that he can do. We've done that before. So if you've watched the channel before, you know I don't like to talk about the same thing too many times. Try to keep it fresh. He is a guy that knows how to win. And we've talked about many times before, and as many of you know, you guys have been watching boxing for quite some time, you know how a fighter wins a fight matters. When he fought Angel Acosta, a former champion in his own right, that was a fight where Nakatani showed that he can take a punch, right? His chin was tested. It was a fight that he took a shot and gave out a shot and came out on top. It also showed that he could fight anywhere, right? He was fighting most of his fights in Japan. That one was not in Japan. That was one, it was in America. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but he traveled all the way across there to showcase that I can still get the same result wherever it is that I am. And he stopped him, broke him down in 4 rounds, I believe, broke his nose in the process of that fight, if memory serves me correctly. Francisco Rodriguez Jr. was another one who fought champion Ayoko Kazuto, and Nakatani made that a one-sided fight. Andrew Maloney, a guy who fought Franco 3 times and came up short, who's also fought quality opponents, and Nakatani pieced him up in more ways than one can count. Maloney took a beating, man, and Nakatani's uppercut was on point that night from both hands. That fight was starting to get bad. Michael Jackson bad, like real bad. I don't think that fight should have went as long as it did. I think there was some rounds in that fight where you had to say, man, is it really worth it? I'm already down on the cards. Like, it's not looking too good. Do I take my fighter out of it and protect him? Because the thing about Andrew Maloney that you have to respect, man, this guy, if you give him the time to go out on his shield, that's the type of guy that he is. Sometimes a fighter is too tough for his own good. And on this night, I thought Maloney was way too tough for his own good. We saw what happened in the 12th round. Nakatani flicked one hand through and came up with that left hand. He brought that overhand shot down from earth. He brought that shot down from earth. And with everything that he had, that shot landed cleanly on Maloney's chin, and it was over with. Knockout of the year candidate, knockout of the year for many. And it was one of those shots that as we're watching, we're like, yo, is Maloney going to get back up? It looked very bad. Looked very concerning. In his most recent fight, he fought RG Cortez. And RG Cortez, when he fought Juan Francisco Estrada, that was a fight where Estrada was supposed to, it was a stay busy fight, so to speak. It was a fight that was supposed to make Estrada look good. But in the end, Estrada had to dig deep because RG Cortez came and put forth a great performance, even though he lost the fight. The scorecards were pretty close. And Nakatani had his way with Cortez as well. The body shots that Nakatani was putting forth was just crazy, and it was painful, and it was hurtful, it was spiteful, it was vicious. Nakatani in the 5th round hit Cortez with a body shot that made Cortez not only drop to the canvas, but spit out his mouth guard. And then he got back up, and the ref walked him to the corner. He washed off the mouth guard, put it back in his mouth. Nakatani came a little bit closer and dropped him again with another body shot. Cortez had his moments throughout the fight. Absolutely. He had Nakatani hurt a couple times in that fight, but every time that he had Nakatani hurt, Nakatani would come back and steal back the advantage. Whenever he had Nakatani fighting off of the back foot, that's when he was able to have success against him, being physical against him, and not allowing Nakatani to create that space and create that separation where he can use his physical advantages, use his jab, loop in shots, flicking shots, and jump out of range. He's very good with how he controls the range. And if you let him control the range, Nakatani is going to have his way all day, every day, and he's going to come out on top. But if you can smother him a little bit, be more physical than him, and try and not allow him to be consistent and to get into his flow and his rhythm, there's a good chance that you may be able to out-physical him. With his size and his reach, man, it's going to be a lot harder for him on the inside. But that's how you can have success against him. You're going to have to take away the distance and the range, and take away some of that advantage that has made him successful. And so obviously, if I'm Santiago, I'm watching that tape and I'm trying to see and take what was working with Cortez and use that to my advantage, because Santiago has the type of style that can make it a little frustrating for Nakatani, because Santiago, he has to get in close to do his work. So it's going to be interesting to see the tactics and the game plan and to see how this fight unfolds. So who wins? Again, as I said, Santiago has the type of game plan to make it tough on Nakatani. If he can close the range, close the gap, and get in close and smother Nakatani with volume from in close, right? And wrap him up and tie him up and just make it a very physical, grueling fight and make it a fight that frustrates Nakatani, he's going to have a great opportunity to win this fight. The physical advantages are apparent, and I think that will be a factor here. Santiago is what, 5'2" with a 65-inch reach. Nakatani is 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, who knows how to use his physical advantages to work in his favor, who doesn't neglect the jab, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how Santiago handles that and what Nakatani does with that. So if Nakatani is able to establish the jab a lot earlier, and if he finds his grooves earlier, it's going to be a long night for Santiago, especially if he can't disrupt or get in close on Nakatani, man. You don't want to give Nakatani space for him to control the fight. If he's controlling the fight, it's going to be a tough, long night, and it's going to lead to a lot of heavy punches. I like Junto Nakatani to win this fight by decision. Nakatani dropped Cortez 3 times. Cortez hasn't been stopped before, and he was able to make it the full 12. Santiago hasn't been stopped before in his fights, and he's fought some big punchers in his own right. But there's always a first for everything, and when you're fighting a guy like Junto Nakatani, man, who knows what shot could drop you, because he can drop you with so many different shots, especially shots to the body. but I'm leaning towards this fight going the distance in favor of Junto Nakatani. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple ways that you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel. It'll be greatly, greatly appreciated. Shout out to all the members holding down the membership section. I appreciate each of you as well. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video, this time do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.